Yeah, good evening, everyone. This is Srinivas Saya, and good morning, depending on the time zone you are in. Yeah, today I'll be briefly talking about web development trends and predictions. Yeah, before I start with the webinar, let me introduce myself. My name is Srinivas Saya. Uh, Generally, people call me Srini. Um, I did my education in BTech Computer Science in 1990, and then did my MTech in 1992 from IIT Kanpur. BTech I did from REC Varangal. Now it is known as NIT Varangal. Then I worked multiple companies, starting with Wipro, and then a startup company, and then Mascon Global, then IBM Rational, and another startup company, Cisco. And I changed in a few other companies, mainly the startups, and now I'm currently doing consulting for a client based in Bangalore. I have total um, 23 years of experience in the IT industry. Okay. Um, yeah. So yeah, before we start, you can find this the front-end web development course details at the URL, which is in this slide. If you're interested in what is the course content, you can go and have a look at it at this page. Yeah. So at the end of this module, you'll be able to know the importance of web development, understand the role of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, what role they play in web development, uh, a brief introduction to responsive web design, and so you will understand what a motion in user interface means. So basically, the motion means the motion of the elements in the web interface. Then we look at how can we get the page layout with Flexboxes, and then we'll have a brief look at an single page application using AngularJS, and we'll briefly touch upon the backend web development using PHP and Node.js. Yeah. So let's start with why do we need web development? Okay, why as a software engineers we need to be familiar with web development, and we should be able to do the web development if you're working in a web-based application. Yeah. Um, yeah, let's go back to the need of web development. As you know, internet nowadays is ubiquitous. Um, so any user can access the internet using a mobile device. It could be a smartphone, or it could be tablet, or through a desktop. So if a user or a customer need to find you or your business, and the first and foremost mechanism through which they discover you is nowadays internet. In earlier days, people were discovering you through marketing material or through telephone numbers. But nowadays, the internet is the first and foremost mechanism through which your customers or your potential clients will discover you. So if you have a website on the internet, then that builds trust in your organization or in you as a professional. And other words, you can say that it improves your reputation as a person or as an organization. So, and to just sum it up, if you have a website on the internet, then it is your first the salesperson which works for you round the clock. Note that a website never sleeps, so it's always on. And depending upon the time zone, it could be, let's say, if this website is hosted in India, but a customer, a user is based in, let's say, in USA. So when it's in USA, it's daytime. in India night time, but a salesperson in India will not be helping the customer in USA. That's when your website will come in handy. Let's look at, let's understand what a website is, and why do you need a website. As I said, website is it creates the first impression of your business to your potential clients and your customers. So you need to create it to suit the needs of your target audience. You don't create a website for yourself, to be used by you. The target audience for your website is your customers and your clients. It reflects, if your website is appealing, visually appealing, then it reflects on your expertise and your reputation. So to have a good reputation with your clients, then you need to have a good looking, professional looking website. So note that once your website is up, since any customer or client will be able to discover you and your business from any part of the world, that means that that will bring you more business. And a website should be such a way that it should entice the user to take action. So here in this case, action is like say it should encourage the user or a visitor or customer, they should give a business to you. So that is the main purpose of the website. So to create a website, you need obviously web development skills. See, you might have heard the words web designer and web developer. So, but not many people understand the difference between a web designer and a developer. So I would like to clear the doubts of who should be called a web designer and who should be called a web developer. Web designer is basically responsible for the look and feel of a website. In other words, the creative side of the website is what is done by web designer. So he basically decides what should be the layout of the page and what font should be used, what size, what color, and what images where they should be placed. And so to sum it up, the overall branding of your company and you as a professional. So all that should get reflected in the design of the website. So the web designer is a person who creates a visual markup of the website. So so when I said visual markup means he'll use a Adobe Photoshop or any other graphic editing tool and creates a almost a real like a image of your website. Note that uh, until now, rarely a web designer does the actual development of website. And you can also, since this web designer does mainly the creative part of the website, and you can call that person as a right brain person. Generally, it is proven that people who think with their right brain, they are more creative, and people who think with the left part of their brain, they are more logical. Okay, that's where it comes from, right brain person. Let's look at what web developer is responsible for. Web developer, he takes the mockup which is created by the web designer and he brings that mockup to life on the internet. So in other words, that involves the development side of the website. When you develop a website, you need to host it on a web server. So web server could be there on anywhere in the world, but it should be connected to the internet. When you said web server, that web server should resolve to an IP address which will mapped by your DNS. DNS is domain naming server, domain naming service. Uh, like for example, www.google.com or www.microsoft.com. So these names are easy to remember by human users. But unfortunately, these names are not of much use for the machine, that is computer. So these computers, if they have to communicate with one another, they need to have what is called unique address, that is IP address, Internet Protocol address. But these Internet Protocol address are not easy to remember by the human users. So in such a case, you need to do the mapping. So that mapping is done by DNS. So your web server should be reachable through a DNS name like www.google.com. For doing the web development, the web developer needs the skills like HTML, basically scripting or programming in HTML, CSS, JavaScript, PHP, Perl, Python, Java, Ruby, and few others. So as I said, web designer is a right brain person, whereas web developer is a left brain person. He's more logical person. So uh, he's more worried about how do I implement the mockup web page into a real web page which can be rendered by the web browsers. So you need to gain web development skills to become a web developer. So web designers generally they work with the Photoshop like tools. Okay. So here is the basically the skills what is required for doing the coding left hand side, for doing the design on the right hand side. These are some tools and techniques which are used by the black one is the it's a web designer. The white one on the left hand side is the web developer. Okay. So you need to be a full stack developer. You need to do both front end web development and also back end web development. The front end web development basically involves defining the components that are on the page using HTML, and you need to make them look pleasing to pleasing visually. So you do this styling using CSS, and if you have to do some interaction with the end user or human user, so then you need to program that using JavaScript. And you have productivity improving tools framework, that is frameworks. You have frameworks for JavaScript, CSS, and HTML. You need frameworks to basically make you more productive, to do a lot of things in a short duration of time. Let's look at what is the backend web development. Backend web development is basically that is the one which creates the page components the dynamically by the web server. So this includes basically your web server should dynamically create the HTML component and CSS and JavaScript. Normally CSS and JavaScript will remain more or less same for a particular website, but whereas HTML will keep changing for different users. So whenever this web server sends a page dynamically uh, to the web browser, at that web browser side, there is a human user who is actually watching your website on the web browser. You can do a backend web development using any of these programming languages: Java, JavaScript, PHP, Perl, Python, Ruby. So note that the main goal of backend web development is to make the response times. Uh, the site should be very responsive to the end users. Whereas the goal of front-end web development is to make the website look more pleasing and usable by the end user. So the focus of this webinar is the front-end web development. So we'll not be discussing much about back-end web development in this seminar. So before I go on to the trends, I would like to just give you a picture to understand what are the roles played by HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. HTML, as I said, it defines the structure of the page, and you can assume to be like a skeleton of a human being. JavaScript, it provides the interactivity with the user and provides dynamic updates on the web page. You can compare that to like you need muscles to move the different limbs of your body. And CSS for, once you have the body with muscles, it's not good enough. You need to present it in a nice looking fashion. So that is done by using CSS styling. Let's look at few of the modern web development trends. So there, to really cover all the web development trends, uh, it's beyond the scope of it'll take more than 1 hour. So hence it's beyond the scope of the time provided for this webinar, which is 1 hour. So hence I picked up the most important, most usable, uh, most frequently used the trends in the web development. So yeah, here are the few. First one is, I would say, it's a responsive web design. So this is it's becoming a hot trend to make the websites responsive. Be The next one is, earlier days in the initial, like web started somewhere around 1995 to the general public. So almost like 20 years ago. Those days, or even 10 years back, website were more or less static. You'll have some static content, and you'll have at the most some buttons. You click them, you'll get some another page, or it'll take some action. Not much of the movement of elements was involved 10 years back. But nowadays, to make interaction engaging, so you need to have the movement of elements on the web interface. And also nowadays, the single page applications is also a trend. If any of you used the LinkedIn um, page, and there's one section where users can write the articles in their professional expertise domain. So those articles, if you scroll down to the end of the article, whatever is the next article, relevant article, it'll come as a continuation of that page. So you'll never go out of that page, means you will continuously keep seeing one article after another. So that is the one of the best example of single page application. So for implementing single page application, one of the popular frameworks that are available today, which is gaining popularity, is AngularJS. And until now, I would say until 5 years ago, people were using the tables for having a layout of the elements on the web page, or sometimes people were using div elements, div elements. But that's the old practice. The If you have to be like a professional programmer adopting the modern trends, then you should be using flex boxes to get the nice looking layout of the elements on the web page. And then on the backend web technology side, PHP is a well proven technology for generating the web page dynamically. But now the trend is to use Node.js on the backend side. Node.js, note that uh, you can do the coding using JavaScript. So you might have been thinking that JavaScript is required only for doing the programming on the front end side. If you are thinking so, then let me tell you that you can use JavaScript for doing the programming on the backend side as well if you're running your Node.js on the backend side. Yeah, let's start with responsive web design. Responsive web design, the term was coined by a person by name Ethan Marcotte. So he wrote an article on an online magazine called A List Apart way back in May 2010. So at that time, he introduced the concept of responsive web design. So you might be wondering, why do you need a responsive web design? So responsive web design, initially it may take about approximately 30% or 50% more effort initially to make it the site responsive. But what are the benefits you get by making your site responsive is almost the return on the investment what you put initially is almost 300% or even more in terms of uh, the time saved in the development, and also in terms of the user experience and the business it can generate for you. And if you develop a site using the responsive design principles, then in the long run it simplifies the website maintenance. Let's say if you basically making some changes, or if you have to support a new devices, a device with a different screen dimensions, then your responsive web design will come in handy. So let's understand what responsive web design means. Respond basically, your website should respond to the context. So context is, basically it could be device orientation, whether it's a portrait mode or landscape mode, or screen sizes, like smartphone will have different screen size, and even tablet is little bigger size than smartphone, and desktop obviously bigger than tablet. And you might be uh, viewing that website on a display medium like screen, or on a print medium, uh, on a printer. So depending upon, whatever is the context or in which the website is being used, it should give an optimal viewing experience and optimal user experience. So if your website can respond to that, then it is a responsive web design. Yeah, let's see, how we can apply this responsive web design principles, and how we can achieve responsiveness in the web development. You um, you get the responsiveness by adaptively styling the page using the CSS, that is cascading style sheet. And you can use other techniques like fluid grids for getting uh, a layouts which change depending on the context. Note that this grid layouts in CSS3, though standard is more or less finalized, but still the browsers are yet to support it. There is not a good support for grid layouts. So hence, as far as possible, you should try avoiding grid layouts. The reason is, if it is not supported on a web browser used by the user, so then uh, user will not have a good user experience with whatever the browser he or she has. Therefore, as a web developer, you should avoid the grid layouts until there is a full support by the multiple web servers, web browsers. And there's another feature called media queries in CSS3. So for media queries, the browsers have all the 5 different browsers: Chrome, Firefox, Mozilla Firefox, Microsoft IE, Internet Explorer, and Opera, and Safari. Note that Safari browser is available on Windows as well, but Safari is quite popular on the Mac OS. So, and another technique is to use the fluid images. Basically, the image should change depending on the size of the your browser window. And another technique you can use to make your site responsive is to use the relative units of measure rather than absolute values. So whenever you have to specify a length unit, something related to the length dimension, then you need to specify the units in using either percentages in terms of rem, which is root m or relative m. VW is viewport width, viewport height. Okay, these are the few units you should use for getting the responsiveness of the web page. So note that there are other units of measure like pixels, points, inches, centimeters, millimeters, and so on. So those also can be used for length dimension. But if you use those units of measure, then your website will not be responsive. It will always have fixed layout and fixed size. So even if you resize your window, so you will be seeing the same size elements on the web page. Whereas if you use the relative units of measure, depending on the orientation of the device and depending on the window size and the device screen width, uh, so you can, and then depending upon whether you are printing or viewing it, so you can basically uh, get the responsiveness on the website. So Ramarao has asked a question, um, inheritance in JavaScript. Yeah, Ramarao, I mean, yes, inheritance is possible in JavaScript, but not the way we are familiar with in C++ or Java or in Python or any other object-oriented language. So it is little different, but somewhat similar to what we achieve using inheritance can be achieved in JavaScript. And let me look at other questions. Hello, Srikanth. Uh, yeah, Aliva Ghosh typed in something. Table once again, please. I didn't understand, Aliva. Can you type in again? What is the difference between JavaScript and jQuery? This is Shiva Gnanamuttu. Yeah, yeah, Shiva. The jQuery is a framework built on JavaScript. So jQuery at the if you look into the jQuery file, basically it is nothing but a JavaScript. So by using jQuery, you don't have to write too much code to achieve certain functionality. Whereas if same functionality, if you want to achieve using plain JavaScript, then you have to write more code. Just to give an example, uh, you may have to write close to 105 characters in pure JavaScript to get a functionality. Probably it might go into about 10 lines. Whereas the same functionality you can achieve using just one line, which is about 15 characters. Okay, so that's the difference. So basically, you using jQuery, your productivity can be multiplied by anywhere between 3 to 5 times. Even it could be even more, depending upon what feature of jQuery you want to use. Yeah. I think, yeah, there are a lot of questions coming in. Probably let me just ask. Let me answer two more questions, and then I'll go give the demo of Flexbox. Okay. Let me take questions at the end so that if others who might not be interested in the question and answers, so they might leave within the time. Okay. So let me just quickly give a demo of Flexbox. So I'll reserve all the question and answer session to the end. See here you can see a, not a typical layout of a web page. Here you can see the header. Left hand side is navigation links, and the middle the articles, the main content, and the right hand side side portion, which is generally you'll put some additional related links, or you can put advertisements as well. And at the bottom you have footer. Note that this is the normal layout, and you just notice it. I'm just reducing the size. So this is a responsive web design. So the elements which was the navigation which was on the left hand side, aside which is on the right hand side, so they are no more the remaining on the left side and the right side. So it comes one below the other. So now depending on the, see now the this I specified that once the width of the window is smaller than here 400 pixels, not 400 pixels. Let me see what is the code. So here I'll just show it. Here I specified that, yeah, the width is, let's say, 640 pixels and less, then it changes to the mobile like layout. Okay, this is one example of Flexbox. And let me show one more example. Yeah, here you can see we have three boxes, and as soon as I move cursor on top of it, it that element expands. And when I move other, so now the middle box is expanded. So such type of animation you can get it. Note that this is combines flex boxes and also motion in the motion of the element. Yeah, next design trend is, basically the elements on the web page or website should uh, should move depending on the user interaction or an event. Event could be like a click, or event could be like mouse over. Just now I demonstrated a flexbox wherein as soon as I mouse over onto a portion of the element, then that element expands, and when you move out, then that contracts and the other element expands. So this is like, you get to see basically life on the visual elements on the website. So the motion UI basically adds life to the visual elements. Rather than being static, they become dynamic and they react to your action. So this motion UI is getting popularity because, it visually communicates the state of the element to the human user. So it responds like, okay, uh, so rather than being static, if it responds to your action, then you feel good about it, that okay, yes, it is responding to you. And it another purpose of incorporating motion in the UI elements is that it extends or retains the user attention. If it's a static website, user attention is very limited, but if it is engaging, it's interacting with you, then you feel like playing with it. So if you are, if you know, there's a so there are popular games, uh, like say Talking Tom. So whatever you speak into the mobile phone, it talks, it speaks that back to you. So that is nothing but it's basically some say motion in the UI, and also it's replaying back. Since it repeats the same thing what you said, you feel like I'm talking to it more and more. That's how it extends and retains the attention of the user. So this, the motion UI you achieve using the transition and animation of the UI elements. So overall, the if you have programmed the motion of the UI elements, then it gives the better user experience, and because it's more engaging to the user and it's pleasing, and they spend more time, and they tend to give you business. Yeah. So as I said, using CSS3 transforms on events, transitions, and there's a keyframe animations. Uh, so using these techniques, you can achieve the motion of the UI elements. Yeah. The next one is the layout with the flexbox. Layout with flex boxes. So just I demonstrated uh, the flex boxes. It combines both responsive web design and as well as the flex box. So see, until a few years ago, the most of the web designers, not web designers, web programmers, web developers, they were using table tags for getting the nice looking page layout. But that is a very bad option. Nowadays, you should not use table tags for getting the page layout. But later on, the developers started using div tags. But you have to end up doing a lot of nesting of these div tags, one inside the other. So that is also, it's it's okay, acceptable, but still it's a bad option because that is the old style of doing the web development. The problem with that multiple levels of nesting of div elements is that when the maintenance will be that will be very poor, in the sense, if you have to maintain that code, you need to spend more time, and if you have to make any changes, you have to spend a lot of time to rearranging the elements. Yeah, a better way of doing the same, getting a nice looking layout is using CSS properties called float, clear. So these are the good options, but the problem with this float and clears is that uh, as long as they work, it's good. But if slight uh, variations, like if you change the mm, one property or you change the window size, then it it may it may be broken. There's a possibility. But using flex boxes and the CSS3 flex properties, so all those things are taken care. So though Flexbox has been standardized way back in 2009, so unfortunately there's not many people are aware of Flexboxes. Even though it's been 6 years, uh, all the browsers support the Flexboxes. Unfortunately, not many people even haven't heard of the word Flexbox, and since they haven't heard of it, they don't use it. Yeah. So let us, so the advantage of Flexbox is okay. Um, Once you have achieved a particular layout of the web page in one browser, it's very likely that you'll have a consistent layout across the browsers, irrespective of what browser you use. Uh, Assuming that okay, that browser version is after 2009, so then it's a very good chance that browser will support the flex boxes. If you are using older versions like IE 5, 6, or 7, then you may not get the flex box support, but at least IE 8 onwards, you have good support for flex boxes. And with flex boxes, you have good much control of the page layout, and there's a good flexibility so that you can play around with the elements. And another thing is, since Flexbox has been it's recent and it is the modern way of getting the good page layout. And so if you develop a website now, it's quite likely that it's a future proof. So you don't have to worry that okay, later, probably 5 years or 10 years down the line, you may have to uh, change few things on our website, because Flexbox, at least it's going to be there for at least next 10 years. Yeah. Next is the single page applications, which has been a trend nowadays. As I said, one best example which most of us use is the the user articles on LinkedIn page. So for getting them for programming single page applications, you need technologies like Ajax for making asynchronous call to the backend web server. And whenever you have to send the data or receive the data from the backend web server, you need to use what is called JSON. JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. This is the string representation of JavaScript objects, so which you send it to the backend server and get the data back from the server. Note that though it says it's JavaScript object notation, so since it's quite popular, uh, after the XML was being used for web services, now people started using JSON for web services implementation for exchanging the data between client and server, or for that matter, with basically from any other computer. So JSON is very easy to read by the human users, and also easy to process by the machines as well. So not only there's a good support for this JSON format in JavaScript, even other languages like Java and PHP, Python, Perl, other languages also, there's a very good support. Basically, once you have the JSON string, you can convert to object, and from object you can convert back to JSON string. AngularJS is a MVC. Basically, it's a MVC JavaScript framework. MVC stands for Model View Controller. So until now, Model View Controller frameworks were available only on the backend side. The popular frameworks in PHP were Laravel, Cake PHP, and so on. Whereas in the front end side, there is no framework which is following MVC design pattern. So Google has come out with this AngularJS, and they made them in open source, and this being quite popular and it's quite powerful as well. So this single page application, the term has coined by a person by name Steve N in way back in 2005, almost like 10 years ago. But only the recently, I would say last 2-3 years, the single page applications are being developed and deployed. So basically, single page application nothing but the whole application is there in single page. You never have to move out of the page. So so only unless you wish to move out of uh, the web, like that website, only then you may have to you'll be going out. Otherwise, the all the related things you can see in the single page by scrolling up or down. So on like one good example of a single page web application is our the Gmail and also Google Drive. So most of the things what you need to do, you do in the single page. In the same page, it opens the different screens. So one good thing about this is that there's no user interruption in the user interaction. Let's say when you navigate from one page to another page, then basically there's a small time gap and user basically is not engaged. Whereas in this case, single page applications give a better user experience. So I was giving example of LinkedIn where the articles written by users. So once the previous user's article ends, the next user's article starts as a continuous stream of web pages. So in single page application, even if there's a multiple pages that's being shown, the page moves from one page to another page very smoothly. You don't have to navigate out of the page. So for achieving this single page applications in web development, there are multiple frameworks available. So that those are quite popular ones in AngularJS, EmberJS, Meteor.js, and React.js. As I said, you need to be familiar with Ajax, JSON, WebSockets, and web storage. Web storage is a HTML5 concept. Basically, rather than using cookies on the server side and the client side, you can use the web storage. Yeah, the practical applications of this single page applications is, as I said, articles written by the LinkedIn users. And in LinkedIn, you may see that okay, the other users you may know. And when you're scrolling, it'll keep showing them all other users as though so that page is that long. The page is never that long. Page is initially what you see is only that much is the page that contains. But once the browser detects that you are scrolling beyond the page, then it immediately fires a Ajax call to the backend web server and requests the next content to be shown. So that comes, it could be in the form of a JSON or XML format, and you take it and dynamically insert that to the bottom of your web page. So that's how you'll see that that page is very long. So that is possible using that is possible with the Ajax programming, not Ajax programming, JavaScript, and also making Ajax calls. So one problem with this the single page applications is that there's a tighter coupling between front end and back end. So if the back end, if you change, there is good chance that okay, the front end side might be broken. So you before making a decision to go for a single page applications, you should be aware of this. And also to develop the single page application, the regular web pages can be done by anyone. But to do this, the developers need to be smart in using Ajax calls, when to make Ajax call, and how to dynamically insert without having basically the page should look smooth, the transition. So for that, you need to use some smart programming techniques. Note that if a website is developed using single page concept, then it is not very friendly to the web crawlers, because web crawlers depends on, basically they depend on the unique URLs of the pages. But in this case, the unique URL is only one. So the web crawlers may not discover the multiple pages that are existing on your website. So it makes it difficult for the web crawlers to crawl the all the content on your website. So there is some solutions for this. So the multiple web pages which is displayed on a single page uh, is basically you prefix with the fragment URLs. Uh, that's how to some extent the problem is alleviated. Yeah. So yeah, what we talked about until now is mainly the front end side. So let's briefly give an overview of what is the backend web development. Basically, when you talk about backend web development, you are writing code that that runs on a web server or a web application server. So this is the one which is a place where you host your website. So when you do the backend development, what you're doing is essentially generating HTML page elements dynamically on the fly, depending on the user, depending on the option chosen by the user. And note that only HTML content changes from time to time or depending on the user, but whereas CSS styles and JavaScript generally they remain same, because you will have more or less the consistent look and feel, and also the same behavior of the web page. So therefore, for the CSS and JavaScript code remains same uh, for all the users. Like for example, you do a search on Google page, home page, and I do a search, and your CSS file and JavaScript file will be same as mine. But when you do a search, sorry, after doing a search, your CSS and JavaScript file look mine look the same, but the query, sorry, the HTML elements what you see and HTML elements what I see could be different, because when you would have searched for HTML string, I search for CSS string. Therefore, the HTML contents will be different from each user, different for each user. Yeah, server side. There's a few server side web technologies. You do basically programming using any of these programming languages. It could be a procedure language like Java application, which runs on a web application server like Apache Tomcat, or it could be IBM WebSphere. Previously, it was like there's a BA WebLogic as well. Now, and you need to do programming using scripting languages. So there is again two types of languages, like traditional scripting languages like PHP, Perl, and CGI. Whereas there's a modern scripting language like JavaScript, which runs on Node.js and Python. Uh, Python has got a framework, web application framework called Django, and Ruby is also another programming language. Um, a corresponding web application framework is Ruby on Rails. Um, I was saying that okay, Node.js is now is a trendy. The reason is, Node.js, see if you know JavaScript, then you can do backend programming as well as the front-end programming. So you don't have to learn a new language like PHP or Python or Perl. So that way, your productivity improves by not having to learn a new language. This Node.js has got a JavaScript engine which is developed by Google, that's called V8 engine. Over a period of time, Google has really made a lot of performance optimization on V8 JavaScript engine. That's the reason why Node.js has got good performance, and it's got faster response times. And nowadays, if you want a good performance um, of your website, then people are preferring Node.js. Yeah. So See, until now we talked about the backend program, front-end web development and backend web development. Ultimately, you do this front-end web, backend web development to actually to create a website and host it. So let's understand what is a website. Website is nothing but a just uh, basically it's a composed of one or more HTML pages. So generally, a website will have a default page that will be displayed when you hit that domain name. Is like it will be named as index.html or index.php. So you don't have to explicitly mention that. If you don't specify it, it will display one of these. It will serve the web server will serve one of these pages, which will be stored on that web server. So basically, you need a web server to host a website. So web server could be it's a simple HTTP web server. So which is even depending on the which operating system you are running. So it could be a process by name HTTPD or Apache 2, Nginx, INET Manager in case of a Internet Information Server, which is a web server from Microsoft, or it could be you could be running your website on the web application server. So if you write your backend program in Java, then you need this application server, which could be like open source software like Apache Tomcat, or licensed software like WebSpace from IBM. So for basically both for hosting a website or for sending that web page to the a remote user, you need multiple technologies like HTML, which is hypertext markup language, HTTP, hypertext transfer protocol, TCP/IP, which is transmission control and internet protocol. These are the protocols which uh, either you need to have at the network layer or at the application layer to to basically the develop and share your website page with the remote user, and ultimately it has to be rendered, which is the HTML page has to be rendered by the web browser. Note that you can host a website on any of the operating systems, could be Linux, Windows, or Mac OS. Okay, yeah. So this is a graph which shows what is the um, percentage growth of the web developers in the job market. So this is the trend. You can see that since 2006, the trend has been growing, and in the last few months, it's really exponential. And therefore, see if you are a full stack developer, then your marketability in the job market increases tremendously. Yeah, Edureka has got a course on front-end web development. It has got a course on back-end web development as well. But I'm the instructor for the front-end web development course, and there are about 10 modules. I cover HTML in two parts and CSS 2.1 in module 3, and briefly I cover HTML5, um, HTML5 forms, audio, video in two modules, and the module 6 I cover the new features of CSS3, and JavaScript I cover again in two parts, and then I briefly touch upon jQuery and AngularJS. Both are JavaScript frameworks. And in module 10, I touch upon the advanced features or advanced features of modern web programming. So like the server sent events, web sockets, web workers, and there's a HTML canvas, drag and drop API, and so on. There's of course there's a web storage as well. Let me first answer all the questions from the participants, and then I'll give you the demo of some of the topics which I covered in this webinar. Yeah, Flexbox. Um, yeah, as I said, I mean, Flexbox is the there's something called display flex. Once you say display flex, then at a parent element, then all the child elements you have the flexibility to arrange the way you want. It's a little advanced concept and it's somewhat complicated as well. It's not easy to use it, but once you master it, how to use it, then you can get a lot of flexibility in the page layouts, which otherwise would have been almost close to impossible. Or I mean, sometimes it's very difficult. You need to do a lot of markup to get the same effect. Yeah, I answered question like pixels are used in CSS or CSS3. Okay, and Shiva Gnanamuthu asked one question: ASP.NET is good language or not? See, yeah, it's a tricky question. Uh, I would say, see, ASP is like a ASP, as you know, it stands for active server pages. Okay, and active server pages initially before .NET came, so it was implemented by Microsoft. It is somewhat similar to, I would say, a PHP. Okay, um, so it's a scripting language on the server side, but after a .NET platform came, so they migrated that PHP, they ported PHP onto the .NET platform as well, and that's what is ASP.NET. See, if you ask me whether it's a good language or not, see, I would say it's a personal choice. See, let's say if your website is hosted on a Microsoft server, web server, so then you have no option but to use the ASP.NET because that will have very good support. So you know, when the most of these enterprises they use Microsoft technologies because they know that Microsoft is a big company and it provides support in the longer run. That's the reason why any enterprise company, big company, corporations, companies, if they want to implement uh, any of these web applications, so they would prefer to use Microsoft technologies rather than open source technologies. The problem with open source technologies is like no one is responsible. So though there is a group of people who actually provide the support and keep adding the features, but you don't know how long that will last. Ultimately, to make the development, to host it, so you need at least some funding. So as long as those that group is generating some funding, getting the funding, so that will survive. Once the funding is over, then that's when it becomes difficult to survive, and that's when they close that technology or discontinue the support. And that's when these big corporations uh, will find it difficult to support those open source technologies. For these reasons, people you go for Microsoft technology because they got long support. As I said, it is a personal choice, and again, it's a personal preference as well. Some people like the syntax of PHP, but some people are used to ASP syntax. So I would say it's a more of a personal choice, Shiva. And Muralidhar typed in saying Pixies. I didn't understand. Probably you can type in again. So how to use the fluid images? Fluid image basically there's some CSS styling you should follow to get the fluid images. So to give quickly answer it, instead of specifying in absolute units, you specify the uh, in relative units for that image. So like for example, if you say width, let's say 20%, so it is 20% of its parent. So if the parent win element, let's say it changes, accordingly your child elements also will try to remain 20% of your parent element size. That's how you can get the flexible images. Okay, and yeah, so those flexible images, or you can call it fluid images as well. The Abhay asked a question. In Java programming language, JSON used for view of web pages. Then what is the use of HTML, CSS, JavaScript? Yeah, that's very good question, Abhay. So see, not many people understand. See, when I'm doing a programming on the web, like in Apache Tomcat, on our web application server, any application server in Java, why do I need to use HTML, CSS, JavaScript? So let me make that distinction very clear. Note that the backend side, so you might be using whatever the scripting language, whatever the programming language, okay? So user is not bothered about it, because ultimately the end user, the human user who's using the web browser to visit your website, they uh, see, they are using the web browser to view your website, correct? So anything that needs to be rendered on a so not web browser, yeah, anything that needs to be rendered or displayed in a web browser, it has to be in HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Of course, you can use other frameworks like Bootstrap or jQuery, AngularJS, fine. But note that all these JavaScript frameworks are also implemented in either pure CSS or pure JavaScript. So what it means is, when you write a Java program or PHP script or a Python script, Perl script, whatever you do on the backend side, ultimately your Java program and the scripting program should generate an output which is HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Only then, see, once that is dynamically generated, that you send it on HTTP, which goes on top of TCP/IP, and then you receive it, that packet, and now your browser strips of TCP/IP headers and also HTTP headers, takes that only HTTP, so not HTTP headers, and then takes out only HTML content and renders it using HTML. It knows from HTML, it knows the elements. With CSS, it will do the styling. With JavaScript, it will do the any interactivity that is required. So the front end, the user, the human user is not worried what you use on the backend side. Ultimately, whatever you use, it should generate HTML, CSS, JavaScript, full stop. So note that even though if you're a backend developer, still you have to generate these HTML elements dynamically. So you need to first know HTML, CSS, JavaScript. It's not enough if you are just a backend developer. So then it's only if you're just a backend developer but don't know about front end development, then it's just half cook. So if you want to be like, say, if it has to be fully cooked, then you should know both. Backend developer should know front end development. Front end developer also should understand what is being done in the backend. Only then your value is more to you as a professional and to the company you are working for. Okay, I hope that answered your question, Abhay. Yeah. So Anand, I did talk about Flex, I think, so I'll skip. So, so Prasad asked a question. Div completely. You mean to say div is a complementary to Flexbox? Yeah. Okay. I didn't quite understand what you want. See, I know what is your intention. You want to say that, okay, can I use Flexbox in place rather than using divs? To answer that, yes. So you don't have to use divs. If you go and look at any of the popular websites like even YouTube or even Flipkart, you will see that, okay, there is a lot of divs are nested one inside the other. So that's difficult to maintain that type of the HTML code. But if you use them in Flexboxes, all those nesting levels will go away. Yeah. Then Anand asked another question. Can you tell me about WebRTC or media server? See, WebRTC is mainly for real-time communication between the clients and server. The media server is something basically which serves the media content. The media content could be like your audio content or your video content. So if you are sometimes it can be even graphics images as well. Basically, since audio and video content generally it will be huge. So you don't host it on a regular web server which serves the HTML pages, because I mean there'll be a lot of users who who needs the HTML pages, CSS, JavaScript to be served. Therefore, if your main server is serving the video or media content itself, then the other users will see that okay, your website is unresponsive. So that's the reason why only few users who to whom that media content, audio video has to be served. So that will they will be redirected to another media server, which will actually serve the media content, which might run into few megabytes. So until that whole media content is served, uh, basically your web server is serving only that user, whereas your regular web server should serve as many users as possible within 1 second. I hope that is clear. Okay, and then Nilesh asked a question. Java query is the just framework? Yeah, not Java query, it is jQuery. Okay, so it's say jQuery is just a framework that is built on top of JavaScript. If you go and look at development, see all these frameworks, they come in two versions. One is a minified version, which is like when you will not be able to understand what is written. Basically the long variable names will be shortened, and basically the instead of regular the statements, they'll optimize to get the same behavior so that the file size is small. But if you do uncompressed version or development version, then you will see what if you look at that. If you open that jQuery.js in a text editor, you'll see that it is a JavaScript, pure JavaScript. Only thing is these frameworks will be using advanced features of JavaScript, which if you read it, you may not be able to understand the code. But it is pure JavaScript. I hope that answered your question, Nilesh. Yeah, then Anand asked a question, can I use JavaScript for media streaming? That's a good question. See, you can use them in JavaScript as well, provided you are using the Node.js on the backend side. Because you need JavaScript, sorry, Node.js to run JavaScript program. So, so then see, JavaScript is like if you use it on the backend server, it's just like any other programming language. So, see, John, now your JavaScript on the Node.js side can read your media files and keep streaming. Yeah, to answer your question, yes, it's possible, provided you are using Node.js on the backend side. So, Aliva asked a question: are you going to send the slides after this session? Yeah, yeah, I think you can contact Edureka support. They should be able to share the slides with you. I think they are going to do hosting. See, this webinar has been recorded, and they'll host this webinar on the net. Probably you can contact them if you miss out any portion. Okay, and Yogesh asked a question: which is better for backend development, PHP or JS? Yeah, Yogesh, to answer your question whether PHP or JavaScript is good for backend development, the answer is I would say yes uh, for both and no for both. So so in other words, I would say it depends on your application in which your skill as well. You see, if you are good in PHP, then go ahead and use PHP. But note that PHP has got its own, what do you call, performance limitations. So, but the good thing is that so PHP has been time tested. It's almost it's been there since the beginning of web, like for last 20 years. Since it's been time tested, so it is more trusted, PHP. Whereas, like for example, the Facebook initially is developed using PHP. So later on, they found performance limitations of PHP engine. So they rewrote PHP and they called hip hop. So that is what they are using. Basically, hip hop is nothing but what do you call strongly. See, PHP is a you don't have types in PHP. So whereas in hip hop, you provide the type information so that it is efficient when the code is generated. So that's what they did in hip hop. See, JavaScript, you can use it, but that is a modern trend now, because Google, as I said, Google has really optimized V8 uh, JavaScript engine, so that's quite fast. So if you want a very fast responding server on the backend side, then the trend has been the Node.js. But the problem is, I mean, not many people are have got the skills to do the scripting using JavaScript on Node.js. So probably over a period of time, people gain the skill in doing programming in JavaScript. So I think that is the trend. I think it'll take for some more time. Both PHP and JavaScript do exist, but only thing is JavaScript or Node.js will, the market share of Node.js will increase, and whereas probably PHP might decrease, or more or less it remains same. So since the number of people who use Node.js might increase, so relative to that, the PHP though the number remains same, so it might appear in terms of percentage wise lesser. Okay, so to answer the question, I would say it's a personal choice, and also what skills you have in your team. Okay, yeah, yeah, Anand said thanks for giving demo about Flexbox. Yeah, you're welcome, Anand. And for Shivam Gnanamuttu, I showed slide number 28. Yeah, thanks Shiva for appreciating the webinar. Yeah, Kiruba Karan, he wants me to show the Flexbox sample HTML code. Okay, let me just show it. Yeah, so you can have a look at this. Yeah, you can see here display flex row, and there is also flex 20% order. So these are the Flexbox properties. Here you can see here, and yeah. So even the media, I'm using media query. In the media query also flex direction, order, and yeah, all these are the Flexbox related properties. And note that code is your actual HTML code is quite simple. Header, article, nav, aside, footer. Note that header, nav, article, aside, all these are HTML5 tags. So these are called semantic tags or structural tags. Mm, they are not available HTML 4.01. So all these are new tags in HTML version 5. So you see that again, for such a big page, full screen page, your markup is very simple. So all that when the whatever you the navigation, what do you call the responsiveness, and even the flexbox thing, what you get is all is done in CSS from line number 6 to line number 66 or 68. Yeah, all this is CSS. Okay, and yeah, I think Kirubakaran. So hope you got some idea about Flexbox code. Yeah, Anvesh, he asked, by end of this course, will I be able to develop front-end part of website like Edureka from scratch? Yes, Anvesh, you should be able to develop a site like um, Edureka. Just only thing is, see, there's, as I said, I mean, a website involves two sides. One is the web design portion and web development side. So to develop, see, a good looking site like Edureka site is not developed by just web developer. Note that there is a web designer as well. So both web designer and web developer, both should work together to create a site like Edureka. So note that generally web designer are the creative people and web developers. They are logical people like you and me, engineers. So it is very rare that okay, these two skills will be there in one person. But definitely web developers should understand what is the creative side, and even web designers should understand what is the programming side. So only if you try to connect to the other side, you have to make an effort to reach the other side. Only then you'll actually understand, appreciate what is required on the other side. Each every I mean web designer should respect developer, and developer should respect web designer. Both are unique complementary skills. But if both are there in one person, there's nothing like it. It's like beauty and brains. So, but very rarely you have these two skills in one person. And yeah, um, hope that answered your question. But definitely see what we cover in this front-end web development course is a, a development side. So not the designing side. Designing side probably see someone who has been professionally trained in art and design and creative design. So they will be able to develop a more good-looking website. The website design. So note that the skills required for the web designer are quite different from skills required for a developer. So let's say if you, but what we cover, I think if we go back to my one of the slides, let me go back to the slide. Yeah, here you can see, like you need skills like Photoshop for doing, creating images, Illustrator for developing, for drawing vector images. You should have user UI principles, UX, and then you should know, how to do the branding. Like you should have typography. You should understand what is the user experience. Okay, and there are like tools like Illustrator. So Illustrator is the tool. Photoshop is the tool. Illustration is like, if there is some idea, how do you illustrate it on the web page? And yeah, how to do it in printing, design, and so on. So all these are the creative skills. Whereas on the left hand side is all like Angular, HTML, CSS, PHP, Python, JavaScript, Swift, WordPress, Android. All these are the programming side. So yeah, see, rather than trying to get do the both, you gain expertise in one area, and you work collaborative manner with other person who has got the complementary skills. That way, you will basically you'll be able to what do you call, produce a great website if you collaborate with other person. Definitely, see, it's like in a cricket game. You cannot do the batting, and as you cannot do the say bowling as well. Someone else should do the bowling, and you should do the batting. Only then, you'll be able to play the game. Of course, assume that okay, you are doing a friendly match, not it's a competitive match. But when you're doing friendly match, so one person should do bowling, another person should do batting. Okay. Yeah. Let me just look at the. Yeah. Next question from Siva Gnanamuttu. Let me see if there are any. Yeah. Still 18 participants are there. Okay. I'm just going through the questions one by one. And yeah, Gnanamuttu. Yeah, Shiva Gnanamuttu asked me my personal email ID. Uh, yeah, actually, I would suggest you to contact Edureka tech support. So I don't know whether they have a policy of sharing instructor's email ID. Okay, you can contact Edureka Tech Support. So let me just, okay. Okay, Shiva, you can just contact tech support. Um, yeah. So Prasad asked, I'm going to give a brief description of Node.js. So Prasad, as I said, Node.js is implemented on Google's V8 JavaScript engine. So then Sushant asked a question: is there any framework which we can use for responsive web development? Yes, there is one framework. Um, I'm not able to recall that now. I think yeah, there's one. The one group of students at one of the US universities, they developed a framework for it. You can search it. I'm not able to recall now. So probably I'll share it with the tech support, Edureka support. You can get it from them. I'm not able to recall. Otherwise, you can do a search on responsive web design framework on Google, and you should be able to get it. Sushant asked a question: if I want to shift my development from PHP to Node.js, what is the best way to do? Sushant, I mean, I think there's nothing like a best way. Um, there's no shortcut. So note that PHP is a one type of language. Node.js is a different. Only thing is, I mean, you have to read through the PHP code and then see that okay, how it can be implemented with equal functionality and in using JavaScript. So as basically you are basically rewriting a PHP code in JavaScript. Of course, using the JavaScript syntax and also what are the features provided by Node.js, and you have to rewrite the whole code. There's no other shortcut. What is the use of Node.js? Yeah, Ashna has asked a question like, what is the use of Node.js? See, Node.js is a web server. You can use it as a web server. In place of, let's say, if you don't want to use, let's say, Apache HTTP web server, let's say Apache HTTP web server or Apache Tomcat, which is application server or a WebSphere, or there's even other Nginx, which is also another web server. Let's say for some reason, if you don't want to use any of these, and because I mean, because of many reasons, it could be that you want to do programming or you don't like it. It could be anything. So the flexibility and then fast responsiveness that is provided by Node.js, if you want to take advantage of it, then so you have to write your scripting on the server side using Node.js. So what it gives is, so Node.js is the future trend. That's the one reason why you should go for Node.js. Second is it's very fast compared to other web servers. And if you know the, let's say, JavaScript, by virtue of you doing the front end web development, then you can also do the back end web development, because using Node.js you can write the code in JavaScript. That's another advantage. So you don't have to know another language like PHP, Perl, Python. So you have like time advantage. Um, yeah. So that's about it. So these are a few criteria, like your skill and like making future proof and so on. These are the reasons why you go for Node.js. Yeah, and Suman asked a question: can we get the recording of this webinar if I want to do online web designing course? Will will you will you provide? Yeah, okay, I didn't understand. Okay, see that this webinar has been recorded. Once this webinar is over, I'll share the recording with tech support, yeah, Edureka support, and I think they'll host it in some place where it's accessible to uh, the outside users. So yeah, Suman, If I haven't answered your question, please type in the chat window again. Yeah, then there's Navin asked a question. I'm a Java web application developer. I have good work experience in JavaScript, jQuery, databases, HTML5 and CSS. If I want to be hot in the market, should I learn PHP, Node.js? Uh, yeah, definitely. See, either PHP or Node.js, one of them. If you know, then basically it will be good, because since you know Java, which is a you'll be writing Java applications. But note that, I mean, writing Java applications on the backend side, it's very time consuming, and it needs a lot of debugging as well. So, but if you know the and the other side, I mean, if you write the backend code in Java, your productivity is lesser. But in the same amount of time, if you're doing a scripting using PHP or Node.js, JavaScript on Node.js, then you will achieve the same functionality, so in a much shorter time frame. So that way, definitely your uh, sellability in the job market and your demand in the job market goes up if you know PHP and Node.js. One of them, preferably Node.js. And also, as I said, I mean, since PHP has been time tested, I mean, some companies will still are still using PHP. Yeah, Suman, you said, I mean, will you provide? And after that, there's nothing, so you can just let me go down. Probably if you had typed in below. Suman, one more question. Yeah, Suman said, I mean, can we get the recording of this webinar if I want to do online course? Yeah, that I answered. Uh, yeah, Manjunath said this is a very informative seminar. Thank you, Manjunath. Can you send me your email address so that I can ask some more queries? Yeah, Anand, I mean, probably you can just redirect the queries to Edureka support, so they'll redirect to me those queries so that I can answer them back. So Anand asked a question regarding Node.js. Ashna said, "Thank you so much for giving such a nice talk." Okay, you are welcome, Ashna. Suman, can we get the recording of this webinar? Yes, I said no. I think they should host it on a common place. So Kiruba Karan, great, thanks Rini. Yeah, welcome Kiru. Anybody want to attend it again? I think Suman asked. Anybody want to attend the seminar again? What will be the time? So I don't know whether this webinar will be scheduled again, because I'm so you need to contact. I mean, if you want, and if there is a demand, like say more people wants to attend because this time is not convenient, probably you can put a request. If there is a request to the support team to have the one more repetition of this webinar, probably I'll be more than happy to do it. But if they want, otherwise they may have to go through the recording. Um, if I want to do web development course, please guide me from where I should do. Yeah, Suman, to answer that question, definitely, I mean, I would suggest Edureka, because see, I have seen a lot of other, there are many online web courses, um, but see, I being the instructor for this course, I do research about how it's being done by the other companies. So I done the research and I try to incorporate all the best things of all those courses in this course. So I would say the this course which I'm yeah, delivering is one of the best courses. Why I say one of the best, not the best, is because I mean I may not know there could be another best course which is as good as me. That's the reason why I said this is the one of the best rather than the best. So yeah, definitely the way this. See, another thing is, I mean, whatever I explain in my slides, I almost demo each and everything, and I make sure that okay, the participants understand what I explained. Until they understand, I won't move forward. So I'm not restricted by just only 10 sessions. If it takes 15 sessions, let it be. And in the last previous batches, so I keep taking extra classes, extra sessions, because I mean the, participants are so interactive. Sometimes they don't understand. I have to repeat until they understand, and they'll ask more questions outside this. What is there in the slides? I end up answering that, because of these things. Generally, I will not be able to cover within 10 sessions. So it may take 14, 15, or even 16 sessions. So yeah, as I said, I mean, so I'm not limited by the time. So I am committed to uh, making sure that you become uh, conversant with all the topics taught in the class. Hope that answered your question, Suman. Yeah, there's again a question on the recording of the webinar. Yes, it will be available. Um, okay. Suman asked a question like, can we get the recording of this webinar? Yes. If I want to do online web designing course, will you provide? I think this it's been repeated. Okay, I think I answered your question, Suman. Recap of all the slides. I think I don't know whether they are going to share the slides or not. Okay. Yeah, Sushant asked one question: how AngularJS is different from jQuery? See, the jQuery, both jQuery and AngularJS, both of them are JavaScript frameworks, but you use both for different purposes. So jQuery is mainly used for getting the what do you call, some sort of like motion, like movements of the elements. That's one reason. Like for example, some animations, hiding animation, showing animation, and few other animations. So for that you use jQuery. And another most important thing why you use jQuery is for manipulating the DOM. So when see in HTML5, the need of jQuery is significantly reduced, because most of the functionality which jQuery provides has been implemented natively by either CSS, CSS3, or HTML or JavaScript. So, so these three put together, the latest versions of ECMA script version 5 and CSS3 and JavaScript HTML5, they combine together. You may not need jQuery as much as you need it probably in HTML 4.0 and CSS 2.1. Whereas AngularJS, even HTML5 also you need AngularJS, because AngularJS is the MVC, model view controller pattern for the front end web development. Let me demonstrate one simple application, okay, to so that you will appreciate better. Let me see how many others. Sushant, are you there? Yeah, you are there. So let me show you one example. This is a very simple AngularJS application. Okay. So this is a page which is using AngularJS. So note that this is as if you're familiar with how the billing is done in a supermarket. So you get an interface something like this. Note that all those applications are native applications which are installed on uh, the machine, local machine. So even if you have a web-based billing system, so it will not be as good as this. So it will be very crude, but not very functional, rich and good looking. So you see here, I'm typing pen. So I need 10 pens, and I again pressing tab, and I'm selecting add item. So I need pencils. So I need 20 pencils, and then I'm clicking on add item, and I need erasers. I need 30. So add item. Note that as and when I add a new item, so you'll see that unit price is fetched. It could be fetched from the database and then backend database, or it could be prefetched as well. See now 10 unit, it's a $10 is unit price, and then 10. So 10 into 10 is multiplied, and then you see this is subtotal is $100. And similarly pencil $80, eraser is $90. So note that this last column, which is the subtotal column, subtotal, all of them 100, 80, and 90, all of them are added up to get total bill of 270. Note that if you want to delete any item, you can remove it and then again add. So if you want to add it again, so let's say you want pen, you want only 5 pens now, and pencils, you want only 5. Okay, so you can see now you can add the items, delete the items. So note that see if the same thing has to be done probably 10 or 15 years back, then you have to, for every action what I do on the front end front end side, it has to go back to the web server, backend web server, again see that what user wants and generate a new page and send it back. So note that assume that if you have only your web server with the existing capacity of your server configuration, it might support only about 10 simultaneous users. But if you go to 100, you may have to add 10 more servers to support 100 users. So that is very expensive proposition. Note that not all the time you'll have 100 users. So you'll unnecessarily spending on servers, the electricity, air conditioning, and so on. So that's because you're not able, for everything you are going to the backend web server. But if note that if that can be done in the front end side, then you don't have to go to the backend. Notice in this web application, the probably only 2 times you need to go to the backend side. First time to get the unit prices of all the frequently used items. So that's in one shot. Or you can alternatively, if you know if that is huge, then depending upon what user has entered or purchased, only that unit price you can go and get it. So it could be, since it is short, and that can be serviced very fast, and that can be done through Ajax as well. Since generally Ajax calls put less load on the server compared to the synchronous calls. Like when previously you send a response, you send a request and then wait for the response. Okay, and note that the subtotaling is all done here, and you don't have to go back to the backend server. And only time when you need to go to the server again is probably when you are basically printing the bill. Printing also can be done locally. Probably once you say user what do you call, the customer pays the amount for the bill, then you need to update to the backend that okay, so much amount has been paid, and also so many items have been sold, so that you deduct from your store stock. So that is required because as and when a particular item goes below the certain amount, a certain number, then you may have to may have to procure from the warehouse. So for that purpose, probably very few number of times you will contact the server, and that also, that contacting also is of very lightweight. So that way, you are with the existing configuration of server, you can support the huge number of users. So that is the advantage of this AngularJS framework, because most of the work is done on the front end side itself. Very rarely you need to go to the back end side, only for a very critical functions, critical tasks. Okay. Okay. Sushant said, can you show the AngularJS code? Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So this is the AngularJS. The code is, see this is the AngularJS framework. So minified version. You can download from the web. You can search for AngularJS download, and you will be directed to the place where you can download from. And see, this AngularJS application is in this code. see let me show the HTML code. See, see, there are a few things like see this ng app, ng controller. This is what tells which portion of the web page has to be controlled by the AngularJS. So these are two important directives, AngularJS directives, they're called. And you can see double curly braces here. So those double curly braces will represent the I would say expressions. They are called AngularJS expressions. So you can write AngularJS expressions which will be processed by AngularJS framework. So all these are, so whatever you see in the table like billing application, all these are the expressions. So this is where I'm taking the item price and multiplying with the item quantity, I'm displaying the currency. And here I'm creating a remove button, and then let's say the remove it's a JavaScript code, and again ng click is in AngularJS. So there is a again ng model. These are again AngularJS directives. There is a for adding a new item in the bill. This is again ng click add. This is a JavaScript code, and the grand total. So actual total is happening in the again JavaScript function called compute bill total. Okay, note that this is also AngularJS expression. So yeah, one code is just single line. You say that okay, what is the your application name, and the second one is the actual controller where you write the actual code. Here, just when I defined these items like pen, pencil, eraser, gum, notebook, pad, 6 items in my stationery shop, and the prices. And here you say controller, and initially I do not have any items in the bill. Okay, and get the element. See here, get the elements and quantity what user has entered, and I do a lookup in this array, and then basically I create an object, and that object I'm pushing to this let's say what has been built in the array. So then I clear it off and then again bring it to focus. In the remove button, what I do, I just use splice and then delete that element from these elements. So that gets deleted, and that's it. So Angular, see, you just delete from this array, and AngularJS will automatically update the web interface. You don't have to do much. See, if the same thing, if you have to do coding using JavaScript, probably I'm sure I may have to write at least close to 10 lines. But here, I don't write in just one line, remove, done. So this is just, I mean, it's not required, but just like as soon as when you delete it, here I mean, I'm just bringing the focus back to the input box so that you can start entering it. And the actual grand total is being done here. See, note that whenever I create here, I'm creating the item quantity and then its price. This price I fetch it from this one. Note that here currently I initialize it. This price is what is you get it in the form of JSON from the backend web server on the fly, or depending upon what category of like as and when you're typing it, you can predict what item user might be typing. So let's say all the items starting with P or items starting with E letter. So you go and get all of them on the fly, and then you create dynamically this array. So by converting from JSON string to JavaScript object, and then do lookup, and then create this object, and then push it. So all these things happens dynamically in the background without you knowing it. So that's the beauty. So here you use AngularJS to handle the front end work, the like adding, deleting of items, and the fetching of the price information from the backend or promotions, some discounts, all that you get from the backend by making Ajax calls. Okay, yeah. Then you delete it, it gets done. And here what I do is I mean, you iterate to that array elements, and you uh, compute the total. So you return the total here, and AngularJS will update that amount there. So that's brief about AngularJS. I hope that is helpful. So definitely see with Angular JS, I mean, you can really develop very interactive web applications. Note that Angular JS has been developed by Google, and Google themselves, I mean, Google, they themselves use Angular JS for um, basically developing for their internal development, for developing the applications on the Google website. And another thing is, even I would like to share one piece of information. One of the key team members of this Angular team, which developed this Angular JS application in Google, was he was Indian. His name is Sham Sheshadri, and he has written a book on Angular JS. Um, so he's currently based out of Pune. So thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for listening to my webinar.